Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon.
Hi, Nia.
Hello, how are you doing?
I
Ooh.
want to talk about something I've got very excited about recently, which doesn't sound exciting, but I'm hoping you're going to be really excited. And this is all about skeletal muscle. What is it? Where is it? What's it do? And why am I so excited about it?
Okay, so I'm now imagining skeletons with all those
Aha.
diagrams of all the muscles all over them. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so where the start of this was that I've always used the word skeletal muscle in a
Yes.
sort of in my mind, I had these muscles attached to my bones. You know that skeleton has got a string, and you pull the string, and it does a bit of a knees up.
Oh yeah, he
That
does his
one.
dance. Yeah.
So I've always imagined skeletal muscle just being these little muscles that make your bones work, right?
Right.
And I started off ignoring the whole business about skeletal muscle. And the other thing about it is that in recent times there's been quite a lot of talk about, and it's splashed in sort of headlines. Don't think exercise is going to reverse your obesity. So, in other
Mhm.
words,
Yeah.
exercise isn't necessarily a great weight management tool, and we'll talk about that a bit. In fact, it is and it isn't, and you need to understand the importance of skeletal muscle. It's not all about weight loss.
Yeah.
But I looked at a picture, so that was the first thing. I got
Mhm.
a diagram in the anatomy books, which I've looked at many times. But when I looked at it sort of more critically, I realized just how much of your body
It's
is
skeletal
made up
muscle.
of skeletal muscle. So skeletal
Yeah.
muscles are everywhere. They on your forehead, down the back of your scalp, into your neck, and then you get bigger muscles and smaller muscles and
Yeah.
muscle sheaths that are quite thin and quite thick ones, and incredible amount of skeletal muscles. There are a few types of muscle, by the way. The other's cardiac muscle, so that's your heart, and
Yeah.
other things like smooth muscle, which are slightly different. But the main muscle in your body is skeletal. What percentage, as you stand there, of your
Mm.
body is made up of muscle in a percentage?
Well, quite a lot because, as you said, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. It's
Now I've
it's
described it for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about. Do you remember that man who did that? He took like resins and he made a whole
Yes.
diagram of like of the human body, and he had an exhibition in London, and you could see all the nerves, and you could see.
Yes,
And now I'm
yes.
thinking
I
about
went
those
to see
bodies.
it. It was
Did you?
fantastic. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
went to see
really
it.
wanted to see it.
It was very controversial because, anyway, we won't go into the controversy, but the models were just
They were just
incredible.
amazing, weren't they?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking of now. So I don't know, half, bit more than half.
Yes, about, well, between 40 and 50%. So can
Okay.
you imagine your young boys who are pre-teen and the
Yeah.
muscle that they've got and the ratio of that muscle to fat, and then think about, I don't know, somebody in their 40s, think about someone in their 60s, and you can see how much more that ratio would
Yeah.
be muscle, and why that makes such a difference to how you use your fuel for a start, but also about your sort of metabolic health and your metabolic rate and all of that. So this is
Mm.
all very complexly wound together in that fabulous way that our bodies are, because they are so incredibly clever.
Yeah. So we've got all this muscle. and there's a lot of it. So why have we got so much of it? Why is it so important? What do we need it for, apart from standing up?
So you can imagine that you've got that skeleton that would just fall down in a heap of bones. And so
Yeah.
your muscles are basically keeping you upright. They're helping you to function as a human.
Okay.
And so they're incredibly important. Basically, you can't do without your muscles. But why have I got so excited about muscles? And I'll tell you why. Is that when you're young and you cartwheel across the lawn and then play football with your friend and then, chuck a bit of ball about, and
Mhm.
then you completely take for granted that your body all hangs together and it all works. Maybe you're doing ballet or all the things that use all those muscles, you're completely unaware
Yeah.
of how clever it all is. When you get to my age, so I'm on the other end of all of this, I
Mhm.
long now to do cartwheels across the lawn, by the way, and I definitely daren't because I might break my arms. I'm quite worried about that. But the time between, and this is what I really have got excited about, is so
Mhm.
important because the more you know about these skeletal muscles and the process of aging, the more
Yeah.
interested you'll become in making really looking after them because
Yeah.
they will define basically how
Mm.
you age beyond the sort of where I am.
Yeah.
So I'm still pretty functional, and you'd expect somebody of my age to be pretty functional. I can do
Yeah.
most things I could do. It's maybe harder, and climbing a mountain might be more difficult, but I still have those abilities, and I'm lucky. So some people my age maybe have lost more. They call it it's a natural process losing muscle. You lose muscle at quite a sort of fast rate. So
Yeah.
they call it sarcopenia, and that's a
Yes.
natural process. And I hate the
Yeah.
word. It sounds like some terrible disease, sarcopenia. But that's a
Yes.
normal process.
It is, yeah.
And
As
you
we
are
age, yeah.
losing muscle, just to make sure you know,
Yep.
between 3 and 8% per
Ugh.
decade
Oh,
after the age of 30. And at this rate of decline gets more over 60. So what
I'm
I
good. I've
want
got
to
some
tell
time.
you is you want to be on the 3% and not the
Yeah, 8%.
8%, right?
So this is why, right? So when you're talking about the difference in age, this is why when my children go to football training and they're training for an hour and I watch them and they're running with their friends, they're having a great time, they're doing all sorts of things. And then literally football training is over, and especially in the summer when it's lighter. And then they all run and they're all on the park. And then they're all climbing and going, on the exercise equipment that's all over the parks these days.
Yep.
And they're still jumping around, and we're like, "You've just had an hour's football training. Aren't you tired?"
Mm,
And of course, they're not tired at all because they've got great amounts of skeletal muscle, but B, because children are so much more active than we are, they've got this ability to just carry on, haven't they? And they've got this muscle utilization. Um, and so as we age, so that would explain why all of us who are in our late 30s and 40s are watching them do this football training, and we're tired just watching them.
exactly,
And we
exactly.
couldn't go to the park after.
And I think if you note that at this point, you've got a better chance of
Yeah.
protecting your skeletal muscle. So imagine your muscles are all still there, even the old lady, the old lady, who's maybe bedridden at the end of life.
Yes, she's still got
She
muscle.
she still has the muscles, but they are now really small. She's lost a lot of the mass in those muscles, and
Yeah.
you can literally lose muscles, but basically they're still there. So the very good news about this and aging, and why I'm excited,
Yeah.
is you don't lose your muscles, you lose your muscle mass, but
Right.
you can rehash these muscles at any point. Now, I'm not going to get back to the cartwheeling 10-year-old I was.
No?
I
Oh.
don't think so. I mean, I am still going to try actually. At the moment, I'm trying to get off the floor without my hands, which is not quite a cartwheel, and I'm doing
Ooh.
push-ups, which I didn't used to be able to do. So there
Yeah.
is strength returning, but you
Yeah.
have to work at this, and it's got to be pretty methodical work. And do you know, I never imagined in a million years that I would be somebody who gets up every morning rows on a rowing machine and does
And does strength
just
training.
8 minutes of
Yeah.
strength training, which I've always said I would never do because it's too boring, life's too short. But when I realized just how much skeletal muscles will make a difference, the quality of my life, I've got very interested, and
Yeah.
I'm really rewarded by the fact that I can do things that maybe I couldn't do before. So this is why I'm trying to excite you. The
Yeah,
other
no.
thing is to remember not only about moving. So skeletal muscle isn't only about moving. You asked what
Yeah.
else it does. It is really instrumental in how you use that fuel.
Yes.
So it's part of that machine that is your metabolic system. So
Mhm.
it both stores energy. So all your
Yeah.
muscles store energy. So 80% of your energy is stored in your muscles, which I never realized till
Oh,
recently quite how much that is. Some is stored in your liver. Those are the pantries in your body, and then also you've got your fat stores beyond that. And
okay.
this is where some of the problem comes. That your fat stores get very big because your energy going in is
It's
much
far
more
more
than you
than you are
require. But you
actually.
can imagine if
Yeah.
your skeletal muscles are good, you're going to use more energy just to do anything. So
Yes.
even to
Yeah.
sleep, you'll have a higher metabolic need the
Yes.
more lean muscle you have. So here you go. So it makes weight management much more doable. So your
Yep.
boys will be managing weight without even blinking. In
Yep.
fact, they probably have got less fat stores than most people. And that's
Yep.
because they're in that time of life where skeletal muscle are working really well. And when puberty comes, they grow at that huge sort of accelerated rate. And again, they don't store
Yeah.
much fat. And
Yeah.
then slowly you see, if you look at humans and you were telling somebody about the sort of process of aging, you would see those fat stores increasing. By the way, the menopause is another sort of marker.
What is it that happens in the menopause that I mean, obviously there's hormonal change, but what is it about that hormonal change? What does it do to our skeletal muscle?
So it accelerates when your hormones start to decrease, your estrogen, progesterone, and your fertility decreases. It will increase the rate or accelerate the rate of lean muscle mass, and it's a hormonal natural process. It also accelerates your bone loss.
Yeah.
If you're exercising at the menopause, you will definitely help to protect some of that acceleration, if that's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
but many
Yeah.
of us don't notice our beginnings of loss of strength. So I'm sure you haven't really noticed any yet at your
Mm.
age. But and always tell you the story that the first time I really noticed, because you're less functional in that muscular way as you get
Yeah.
older. You don't ask it of yourself. So you're not cartwheeling across the lawn because it's not
No.
in your sort of ken. But the first time I, at 65, was swimming lengths in a pool, which I'd always done, uh, and I tried to haul myself up at the end of my legs on the edge of the
Yeah.
pool, and literally couldn't, even when I did a run up when no one was looking. And I got so mad about it. I tried umpteen times to get out that pool, and in the end, I had to go and find the steps. And I was
Oh,
mad, mad, mad with myself for being
yeah.
so useless, but also the sudden realization that when I wasn't looking,
You
between
had
the
lost
ages of
muscle.
probably about 55 and 65, I'd lost a fair amount of strength. The other thing you might notice is you ask other people to open bottle tops sometimes.
Jars for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I always thought that was to do with my wrist weakness, but it's nothing to do with your wrist, it's to do with your core muscle strength.
Yeah.
And they talk
Yeah.
about core strength of muscles, and what they mean is that way you hold up your whole body is, there's so many muscles involved in movement, in sitting, in standing in humans,
Yeah.
that's your core strength.
What we really want then is we want to work on our skeletal muscles for two reasons. Firstly, we want to make sure that we don't lose muscle mass
Yeah.
and also by doing resistance and strength training,
Yeah.
we also help that we keep our bones strong as well, which is like a good
Yeah. It's
double
very
whammy because
useful. Yeah.
you know your muscles are connected to your bones as well, and we don't want to
Yeah.
osteoporosis to crack our bones.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
great for that, but also it helps us to be metabolically flexible, which we talked about um, before,
Yes. Yes.
because as you
Yeah.
said, if you are taking in more energy than you require, that is always stored as fat. But if you've got a good amount of skeletal muscle, then they will store that energy as glycogen. They will use that energy, that fuel, to allow you to be more flexible in how you use your fuel. And it's the skeletal muscles that are the part of that that's important. So you said, didn't you, a minute ago, that your skeletal muscle is your body's pantry, which I quite like. It's like a
Yeah.
good
It's a
analogy. So you
big
can think
pantry
that the
too.
bigger,
Mm.
yeah, the
Yeah.
bigger muscles, like your
You're a lot.
quads, will have more shelves.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you have less muscle mass overall, you have less shelves overall. So the minute that your shelves in your pantry are full, your body has to find somewhere else to put that energy, and that's when it's stored as fat.
And then you might notice, in the shower that you get in a bit more fat around your middle, which you can't imagine where it came from. But basically, it's not
Yes.
stored in a pantry as much because the pantry's full. So
Yeah.
the pantries have finite shelves. You're quite right.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the liver is a very, amazing organ. It does
Yep.
store some reserves always, and it has a
Yes.
wonderful
Yeah.
feedback system which keeps your blood sugar stable. So we can fast for quite long periods of time with quite stable
Before we
blood sugars
actually.
because of that liver. But also, your liver makes glucose from other places, and it can even use your fat stores to make ketones, which ketone bodies are another fuel. So I
Yes.
don't know, just a different fuel. But basically, that's why people can fast for 30 days, and just as long as they're drinking water, they
Yeah.
won't
They still
expire.
have.
How incredible. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you should, and I don't think it's a great idea, but it's why
No.
it's why you
It's why
can
you can.
survive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if we work on our skeletal muscle and we work to prevent this loss of muscle mass as we get older, because obviously that's inevitable, there's nothing we can do about that. But
Yeah.
in terms of
You'll lose some.
we
Yeah.
will lose
Yeah.
something, but we can work on our skeletal
You can
muscle
slow
to
it.
improve. We can
Yeah.
slow it, and we can still use our muscles. And the more we use them,
The better.
the better. So, is there the opportunity when you are older, for example, so when you've maybe even passed the menopause, for women anyway, that you could actually build muscle? Can you still build muscle if it's declining or not?
Yes, that's the really good message at the end of all this is you can build muscle at any age, and
Yeah.
don't think you've missed the boat, because I think at my age, early 70s, you might think, oh, well, I'm just never going to be one of those people that exercises. I've never done it. It's not for
Yeah.
me. And it's too late. It's too late. I think lots of people think it's too late. It definitely isn't. And
No.
that's why I'm so excited and that's why I've kept to this amazingly consistent strength training that I do every morning, because I do feel stronger than I
Mm.
did at 55, and that is a gift. The other thing is I'm looking into the future and
Mm.
thinking I'm going to live without need for any care for an awful lot longer. The better
Yeah.
my skeletal muscles, I'll be able to get out the bath on my own. I'll be able to get out of chairs. I'll be able to climb into high um, motors, whatever
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever this sort of. I'll be able to pick up my grandchildren, whatever it is that you want to
Yeah.
be functional towards the end of your life. So that excites me
Mm.
too. And the other thing is that I was put off slightly by this message about exercise. You can't outrun obesity,
Yes, which
and
is
there
true
is
to a
some
certain
truth in that,
extent.
and we've just done a lot of that. Yeah, and what's really interesting about your body, so if you're an endurance athlete, for instance, your body's very protective of you. You weren't necessarily born to be an endurance athlete, but
Mm.
what happens is that your metabolism will adapt to whatever level of activity you do. So
Yeah.
what it means is that you can't just, so when you first take up cycling, say, and you're older, you will lose some weight because you're
Mm.
doing activity that
That you
is
weren't
not
doing
normal for
before.
you, and it's starting to use your fat stores. It'll increase your metabolic flexibility, it'll increase your muscle mass, you'll feel better, it's great for your mood. I mean, what is not to like? But you'll get
Yeah.
to a plateau where your
Hmm.
fitness is at a certain place and your body has adapted metabolic um, uh, that metabolic
Use.
function to
Mm.
include that activity. So that's why when they did this amazing research on the hunter gatherer tribe, where they walked 10 miles a day and hunted, and the guy in Chicago on his computer all day, who was a commuter, they found out that actually they were using very similar amount of
Amounts of
calories
energy.
or energy,
Yeah.
and that's because you've made that metabolic adaptation. By the way, there's downsides and upsides of all of this. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying we should all be hunter gatherers, and it's not necessarily a
Yeah.
useful pursuit for us.
Yeah.
But don't think that you can just lose weight with changing your diet and easily maintain that weight loss, because I think it's much harder
Yeah. It
than
has
if
to go
you're
hand in
doing
hand
activity.
with
And
the
the
muscle.
activity will help.
Yeah.
Yeah, the activity will help the
You.
efficiency of how you manage your weight. Let's talk manage your weight rather than just weight loss, because weight loss is
Yeah.
slightly separate. So there you
Yeah.
go. That's why I'm excited about
So
skeletal muscle.
I like it. And I love your pantry analogy, and it's actually led me to think. Right. So, who wouldn't love a
What's
new
in your
kitchen?
pantry?
Well, what's in your pantry? But who wouldn't love a new kitchen? Well, you might not be able to have a new kitchen, but you can have a new pantry, and you can add more shelves. Every time I'm doing my strength
Yes,
training now, I'm going to be
yes.
thinking, I'm adding to my pantry. I like this.
You and your mum were running for a bus, and the bus was just about to go and you were racing. Your
Yeah.
mother would be behind you, that's for sure. And one
Well,
of the
yes.
reasons would be that her pantry is less efficient at supplying that easy energy because her muscles, her skeletal muscles over time have
Yeah.
decreased. So that would be a
Hmm.
natural process. You would expect it. You would go and put your head in the bus and wait for your mother. But you might
Come.
get to
Yeah.
a point where she would not be able to run for that bus. And I think lots of people only notice the
When they
loss
get to
of
that
that
point,
strength when something like that happens, and something they've always done before is
it's
suddenly out
suddenly
of their
out of reach.
reach.
Mm, mm,
I went to the lakes when I was postmenopausal. I was probably in my probably 60. And I went walking with some of my daughters, who are obviously half my age. And at one point, the lakes is very mountainous for
mm.
England. Anyway, it's not Everest, but there's some seriously steep climbs. And at one point, they thought they might have to get a helicopter out because I was lying spread eagled in the grass, saying, "I can't breathe, and I just can't. I can't do
Oh
this."
no.
And
Yeah.
again, it was one of those things, I didn't normally hill climb. It wasn't something
Yeah.
that, there we go. So another little peaky reminder. I did make some allowances for myself. It's not all your
Yeah.
fault that this happens. When you're
Yeah.
young and you play football every day and your mother makes you supper, is a completely different uh, playing field to being a dad of two boys who's gone to work all day and has to make
And
the
now you
supper,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
doesn't have the football. If you think about it, by the time your life catches up with you, you have to work really hard to make enough to pay your mortgage,
yeah,
um, all of that. And you eating more ready food because you don't have time. Maybe you can't afford a housekeeper. Maybe your wife doesn't cook for you, whatever. But the analogy of you're not having the time and energy to look after
yeah.
yourself is very true in our world. And then
No,
you get to my age and you suddenly realize just how much you've lost in terms of strength.
yeah,
And the last 10 years of lives in our world are often fairly
sedentary.
dequalified by lack of
Yeah.
mobility and strength. So
Mm,
strength and mobility is everything in terms of quality of life as you age. And I know you
Mm.
can't imagine aging as much as me, but it will happen to everybody.
It will happen to everybody, and we have to be aware of it and how we can still maintain our functionality. Because I'm not the kind of person that's going to be
Yeah,
happy sitting there letting other people look after me or
no,
doing stuff that I want
no.
to be done.
I think you'll be doing weights one day and you'll be thinking she was right. That
That
woman was right.
well, I did my weights this morning. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I know you do. I know you do. And you're always ahead of the curve and you're always ahead of me because at your age, I still hadn't cottoned on just how important it was, even though my mother lived to the age of 95 and was very disciplined about exercise and she lived a
Mm,
really quality life right to the end. So she was a great role model for me and I've
yeah.
got it now, but I sort of wished I'd got it slightly earlier.
Oh well,
Anyway, never
we
too
all learn.
late. Never too late.
Never too late. Can always teach an old dog new tricks.
You can forever. See you soon.
Right. See you soon. Bye.